Okay, so we go from a picture that is going to be coming out in Spider Verse, and we're just talking about the Little Mermaid. So I'm a 1980s kid, okay, and so I I love horror, but I'm a very old school kind of guy. Okay, my Mount Everest, if you will, okay, is Jason. By the way, all originals, no remakes. Okay, is Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and you can put anybody else in there. So this comes from Variety, but I won't say sad news. So anybody knows anything about horror, okay? The one person you equate everybody to, Robert Englund. He has always been Freddy Krueger. I mean, and the thing is that Freddy is Wes Craven was not only a genius, okay, but he was able. The stories behind it, I'm not going to bore you with it. You guys can look into it yourself, but it was genius. And he's had almost a 50-year career. And, so he is hanging up the moniker of Freddy Krueger. And this comes from Variety. And the piece reads Freddy Krueger actor Robert Englund on his 50-year journey, why he won't play Freddy anymore, and who he would get to play him. Robert Englund starred in one of the most revered science fiction series of all time. He's directed movies, voiced video game characters, and acted in scores of movies and television. But he's well aware that his legacy is playing a horror film icon Freddy Krueger in 8 Nightmare on Elm Street films in a television series. An upcoming documentary, Hollywood Nights and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story, comes out June 6th, and it dives into England's unique silver screen journey of which he's self facing. I know who icons are, he says. I'm not an icon. Maybe Freddy Krueger is, but I'm not. I'm just a character actor, a utility actor who's been very lucky. Perhaps the most surprising chapter of England's story happened early on when he was frequently adjacent to the 70s blockbusters. From reading to Han Solo in Star Wars and urging his roommate Mark Hamill to audition for Luke Skywalker, to gathering dead leaves to turn Pasadena's California into a Midwest street for Halloween. Englund has got his big break as Willie in V, an Alien franchise which aired from 1983 to 1985. Despite a break filming V, Englund auditioned for Wes Craven's horror film A Nightmare on Elm Street as a burned child who haunts Springfield, Ohio. A low budget hit, sequel after sequel was greenlit, and Englund was pleased to see the horror genre get some respect as he continued the role. I felt it was a cultural shift that people recognized, he said. Horror is the punk rock of cinema in its own way. There was a recognition of pulp as a great ingredient in our cultural world. There's plenty of room for pulp and melodrama, and the door opened wider for the horror. England last played his signature character in a film in 2003's Freddy vs. Jason, which was horrible. Less than a decade later, Freddy was recast with Jackie Earle's Haley and playing his 2010 remake of the 1984 version Elm Street, which is even worse. I saw that in theaters and I said, "Oh, this is going to be, and I've never saw it again." While it was a financial hit, films decried its series low, and another chapter was never made. Despite the horror community loyalty to England, he's fond of Haley's Freddy and thinks that one key change from the original which could make it go off the track. Jackie's just so good, a wonderful actor. So I don't think it was that, he said. I've always thought that Freddy is being described as a child killer. So when they made Freddy a child molester in the remake, that's not what Freddy is, I don't think. By taking it to such a dark, dark place, there's no room for the personality of Freddy to be exploited. Speaking with England, it's impossible to not to wonder about the future of the franchise. Even though he said he never written any of the films, he had an idea about how to bring Elm Street back into modern times. You'd have to deal with technology and culture, he says. For instance, if one of the girls was an influencer, it would be interesting for Freddy to somehow haunt her subconscious and manifest himself. perhaps exploit everyone that follows her, which, by the way, I think would be really cool. He'd be willing to pick up the fedora again for the right script. I'm too old and thick to play Freddy now, he says. I just can't do fight scenes for more than one take. I've got a bad neck and a bad back and arthritis in my right hand, probably for holding up the glove. So I have to hang it up, but I would love to cameo. Englund's pick for a modern Freddy? He was wowed by a fan who mentioned Kevin Bacon as a replacement. That's interesting, I gotta say. I know he respects the genre, and he's such a fine physical actor. He says, "I think that I think that in the silence and the way Kevin moves, it would be interesting." So I'm gonna get. So let me talk about it, and I'll get to something real quick. This is interesting. Um, so Metal, hello Metal, how are you? Hope you had a great weekend, Metal. Sony Pictures barely promotes Spider-Man and the Spider-Web. I mean, you know, I think give it time. I think they'll. I don't really think honestly. I really don't think they need too much word of mouth because they have. Um, they have everything they need. Um, yes, yes, Dad. That was the other one I was thinking of. Doug Bradley as Pinhead, and um, I, I love Hellraiser. I love Hellraiser. I think the 1980 Clive Barker was a genius with Hellraiser, and the whole thing behind that. He would be my fourth one, by the way. Doug Bradley, Pinhead. I would love to see Jason Blum secure the rights to make another Elm Street film. I know he explored it along with Friday the 13th. Yeah, look, Jason Blum is a phenomenal, phenomenal filmmaker when it comes to horror films. I didn't realize this until after I saw it, but The Black Phone was amazing. The Black Phone was absolutely amazing. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. But that being said, it's sad to see him go. I I love Nightmare on Elm Street. Um, and just the quirky one-liners and everything else. So one of the most famous one-liners, okay, he's got a couple, but one of the most famous one-liners is from number three. So that actually, so in in this person's dream, they dream to be a big movie star. Okay, and this is he said. So she was dreaming, and he says, "It's your big break in television. In television. Welcome to prime time, bitch." And he just smashes his. I love the way they were able to do it back then, and it's just phenomenal. It's sad to see him go. I think that I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to see the whole series, the whole thing brought back, but once again, I'm old school. I mean, I think that you hit the nail on the head, Dad, with Doug Bradley. I think that's my four. I think it's Jason. I think it's Michael Myers. It's got to be Freddy Krueger and Pinhead. Um, and it's going to be interesting to see um, how they do all of that stuff. So I'm really interested. I Part of me wants them to bring it back, but part of me also knows that um, I wouldn't be as good. Part two, you've got the body, I've got the brain. I've got the brain as he peels off his scalp to show the brain. Yeah, I mean, the writing was just phenomenal, phenomenal for that series. And the series, I gotta say, the series wasn't that good. Anybody, so anybody who knows of the series, okay, it just was not that good. And Freddy versus Jason, I know that it's one of those things that they wanted to do, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyways, guys, what do you think about Robert Englund hanging up as Freddy Krueger? Are you sad to see him go? Which horror icons do you think of most, and which ones do you enjoy? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll get back to everybody.